בלי מילים, אפורה עקשנית ושותקת, מלילות האימה הגדולים, את נותרת בהירה ודולקת.
At the end of the combat training course of the Givati Brigade held at Mitsudat Yoav, the brigade... This is the Voice of Israel broadcasting from Jerusalem. It is 5 o'clock and here is the news. IDF tank, artillery, and engineering forces have today captured the Iraq-Sudan police station.
It is difficult to describe the valor, the courage, and the tales of the Givati Brigade during the War of Independence. Some of these tales of bravery took place during the conquest of the Iraq-Sudan police station, today known as Mitsudat Yoav, that became Givati's home. It seems there is no place more appropriate to preserve Givati's heritage than this fortress, and no home more appropriate to preserve the spirit of Givati, with the help of these young troopers who are now joining its ranks.
Afghanistan? No. Argentina? Abstention?
The resolution was adopted by 33 votes, 13 against, 10 abstentions.
It is difficult today to describe the historic moment, the excitement, and the joy. But not everyone were joyful. The leaders of the settlement and the military commanders were well aware that the Arab population in Israel and in the Arab states would not accept the resolution, enabling the establishment of the state. War was inevitable. I knew that war would break out tonight. That is why I did not participate in all the rallies, dancing, and festivals. 600,000 Jews with no army and very little arms and ammunition against all the Arab armies. As a result of the resolution, the Arabs initiated terror attacks all around the country, mainly along the roads. The British, under the guise of neutrality, assisted the Arabs both openly and clandestinely, and were hostile to the Zionist enterprise.
Yesterday, an immigration ship carrying Holocaust survivors was stopped. Its passengers were deported to quarantine camps in Cyprus. This morning, British armored cars broke into the Haganah position at the Hayosek factory near Mikveh Israel. They confiscated the defenders' weapons and left them to face the wrath of the Arab mob that murdered the 8 troopers and corrupted their bodies.
The British mandate was coming to an end. There were 6 months left to build and equip an army. The Haganah command ordered the formation of 6 regional brigades. One of these was the Givati Brigade. Givati's first recruits were from field units and the Haganah's youth regiments. They were joined by former partisans from Europe, ex-British Army troops, and women who served as regular soldiers. The Arabs in Israel did not wait for the mandate to end. They increased their terror operations and attacks on the roads. Givati's missions were the defense of the Tel Aviv region and to send reinforcements to Jerusalem and the Negev. Givati first fought in the Tel Aviv region during Operation Hametz, the conquest of Jaffa. In the attempt to take control of the Tel Arish neighborhood, today's Tel Giborim, the brigade encountered heavy resistance and was forced to retreat. Later, Jaffa surrendered to Haganah forces. The brigade sector stretched from Tel Aviv southwards to the Majdal Road, today's Ashkelon, and from the coastal plain in the west to Shar Hagai and Bet Guvrin in the east.
5 o'clock and here is the news. Because of Arab attacks on the main roads, Givati troopers held vital strategic points along the highways. One of these was Karen Kayemet House, a stronghold at the Bet Dagan crossroads.
Arab attempts to capture the stronghold were repulsed. The Arabs then reverted to a new tactic, rolling barrels of explosives at the building from a moving car. In response, the defenders built a fortified bunker in the rear yard. In one of the attacks, the building was totally destroyed. To the attacker's surprise, the defenders engaged them from the bunker, and the attack was repulsed. The bridge was sparsely deployed throughout a wide sector. Givati held Kfar Uriah, Ben Shemen, Negba, Nitzanim, and any settlement in difficulty.
Arab attacks on the roads are increasing. The Arabs control the route to Jerusalem. The city is cut off, starving, and in danger of falling.
Ben-Gurion decides on a concentration of effort to relieve the siege. The aim of Operation Nachshon, under the command of Givati Brigade Commander Shimon Avidan, was breaking through to Jerusalem. Arab villages were conquered for the first time. Arab Hulda and Dir Muhazin, which controlled the route to the city. The operation began by destroying the Hassan Salama headquarters in an orange grove near Be'er Yaakov. The force broke into the building and strapped explosives to its support pillars. The building collapsed on its inhabitants. The operation's success enables 3 supply convoys to reach Jerusalem before the route was blocked once again.
The British are leaving. His Majesty's army is clearing out its camp.
Givati responds immediately. Without warning or preparation, they take control of the British encampments at Hatzor, Bilu, Sarafan, today's Tzrifim, and Tel Nov. The Iraq-Sudan police force was handed over to the Arabs, however. In the future, it would become to symbolize the enemy's control of the area, a key element in the blockade of the passage to the Negev. Invasion by the Arab armies was inevitable. Prior to the invasion, the brigade deployed throughout its sector and was able to create a territorial continuum with the settlements in the south. Givati troops blew up Ashdod Bridge, today's Ad Halom Bridge, and together with the Palmach Harel Brigade, participate in attempts to break through to Jerusalem.
The armies of Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt, reinforced by the Iraqi Expeditionary Force, joined the Arab Legion and invaded Israel from all borders.
The Egyptian division has 15,000 troops and is reinforced with tanks, artillery, fighter planes, and bombers. Opposing the well-trained and well-equipped Egyptian army is a mere handful of determined defenders, Givati troopers, and residents of the southern settlements, which soon became fortified bunkers. The defenders are well aware that they are expected to halt the Egyptian attack at any price. If they fail, Tel Aviv will fall and the campaign will be lost. The entire brigade is relocated to the southern front. An additional regiment is formed, the 55th, whose mission is to hold a rear defense line for the defense of Tel Aviv. Givati troopers are evacuating the babies and children from Nitzanim, Negba, Gat, Gal'on, and Kfar Menachem. Some are evacuated after nightfall on a difficult and dangerous march. The Negev settlements are able to stall the Egyptian army for only a short time. Kfar Darom and Yad Mordechai are evacuated. Negba and Nitzanim are surrounded. The Egyptians continue northwards, but are forced to stop at the ruins of Ashdod Bridge, some 30 kilometers south of Tel Aviv. At this point, there was no defense force between them and Tel Aviv.
הטור המצרי חדר למרחבנו ב-29 במאי. ניתנה פקודה לתקוף אותו, לחתרו ולהשמידו.
Givati forces arrived at the deployment area without discovery and prepared to attack. However, for political reasons, the force had to return to base. The force returned the next day, but the element of surprise was lost, and the force encountered fierce fire from the pillbox. The battle was fierce, and Givati lost 54 soldiers, the price extracted by the Egyptians on their first encounter.
אף כוח לא ביצע את משימתו, מספר הנפגעים לפחות שלנו היה גבוה, אני לא זוכר את המספרים של היחידות האחרות, אבל כאן נעצרו המצרים. מכאן צפונה יותר המצרים לא זזו.
The Egyptians reinforced their troops in the Iraq-Sudan region. They attacked Negba and threatened the besieged southern settlements. Occasionally, there were emotional meetings during work on the fortifications between parents who had come to assist in building the bunkers and their children, now hardened combatants.
הם נרתמו לביצורים, ושם פגשו אבות את בנים. והיה מורגש הדבק הזה, שהוא למעשה בסופו של דבר הטביע בכולם את רוח הלחימה, את רוח החטיבה.
דאגנו קודם כל לאדם לספק לו את הדברים ההכרחיים על מנת שיוכל להילחם בלבוש, בציוד, גם בכסף.
A difficult time was in store for the brigade. The Egyptians attacked Negba and were repulsed. Nitzanim was captured on the 7th of June and Hill 69 on the 10th. On the same day, the Arab Legion in the east captured Kibbutz Gezer.
This is the voice of Israel. It's 12 o'clock, and here is the news. This morning at 10 o'clock, the ceasefire went into effect.
A 4-week ceasefire was announced on the 11th of June. Givati lost 200 soldiers in 2 weeks of fighting. The ceasefire came at a bleak time. The soldiers' spirits were at ebb.
אך מה שעמד לצידנו הייתה רוח גבעתי. האנשים באו מיחידות חיל השדה של ארגון ההגנה, והביאו איתם ממורשתה, מדביקות למטרה, מהקפדה על טוהר הנשק, ובעיקר בביטחון שהם לוחמים על הדבר הצודק ביותר שיכול לעמוד לפני נוער עברי.
The Chishatron Group, starring Yafa Yarkoni, was an important element in raising the troops' morale. During the ceasefire, new volunteers were inducted, and the brigade's regiments were reorganized. The ceasefire was broken by the Egyptians after 28 days by launching a surprise attack on the Bet Daras command post. The Givati force quickly recovered and repulsed the aggressors. For the first time, Givati also captured enemy soldiers and officers. This first victory considerably raised the troops' morale. Despite the deterrence of the Negba attack, the Egyptians continued to hold the branch of Hill 105 at the rear of the settlement. This fortified bunker controlled the area and prevented the arrival of reinforcements. Givati's first assault on the bunker was halted. The second wave of assault, a mobile unit on jeeps, broke the Egyptians' resistance. At the end of the battle, the name of the mobile force was changed to Samson's Foxes. On the eve of the second ceasefire, on the last day of fighting, in an attempt to determine events on the ground, a Givati unit conquered Karatia near Moshav Otzem. Their purpose, to disconnect the main route from Majdal to Fallujah and to open a route to the Negev. An Egyptian force which included armored cars, tanks, and artillery attacked Karatia. In a story of amazing courage, Ron Feller of the Givati Brigade stood 20 meters from the lead tank, shot 2 shells at it, and blew it up. As a result, the attack was repulsed. For his actions, Ron Feller was awarded the Medal of Courage. At the end of the battle, the ceasefire went into effect. Despite their defeat, the Egyptians built a second line of bunkers south of the command post, and the route to the Negev remained closed.
בעשרת הימים התמודד גדוד 53 ב6 קרבות עם הפולש המצרי וניצח בכולם. הקרב הקשה ביותר היה לגבעה הזו שאנחנו עומדים בה כרגע ושמה איבליס. כאן התנהל קרב דמים 3 ימים, בו השתתפו 3 גדודי גבעתי. סבלנו כאן כ60 הרוגים ולמעלה מ100 פצועים, אבל יצאנו בניצחון.
At the First Brigade Assembly, Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion wished them a full and complete victory. And as you will accomplish the liberation of the South, so you will accomplish its settlement and building. The threat of bisecting the country was not alleviated. The Egyptians deployed from the Ashdod region in the west up to the Jordanian legionnaires on the outskirts of Jerusalem. The General Staff decided that it was imperative to ensure a corridor to the Negev. There was concern that the UN would call a ceasefire and determine the borders in accordance with the deployment of the forces. The efforts of the 8th Brigade, a regiment of the Negev Brigade, and the 9th Brigade to break the siege failed. The mission was given to Givati. In the first stage, the brigade assaulted Command Post 113 and the command posts at the crossroads, today the Givati interchange.
אני קיבלתי את הפיקוד על גדוד 51 אחרי כישלון ההגנה על גבעה 69. הייתה הרגשה כללית בגדוד שעל הכישלון הזה יש לכפר על ידי הצלחה בסיבוב הקרבות הבא.
On the 19th of October, the brigade attacked the last compound, the most terrifying and protected in Hulikat. The importance was clear. Either we hold the Negev or they do. The order to the officers was the Hulikat command posts at all costs.
יש לרבוש בכל מחיר
את משלטי חוליקת. עם מטען כזה של תחושה הגעתי לגדוד ומסרתי את זה לכל החיילים. אתה יכולת לראות מין הרגשת ביטחון.
חטיבת גבעתי הטילה על גדוד 53 את משימת הטריז המזרחי. למעשה זה היה מהלך הפתיחה של מבצע יואב כולו. פעולה בוצעה בשלימות, ולפני חצות הצלחנו לדווח לחטיבה כל המשלטים בידינו.
The Hulikat compound and all its fortified systems was conquered in the fiercest battle the IDF had known until that date. The price was unbearable, but the Negev was saved.
ידענו כולנו שזה הקרב על הנגב ושיכול למדינת ישראל. אני האמנתי, ואנשים האמינו, וידענו שזו המשימה. אם רוצים להזכיר את מכתבו של ארנון, אז זו אולי הדוגמה הבולטת, שהוא משאיר מכתב אצל מזכירת הפלוגה להורים שלו. שהוא מסביר להם שזה קרב על מדינת ישראל. הוא מבקש את סליחתם שוב. שהוא נהרג בקרב. אשמע, זה מעיד מה הייתה התחושה.
This victory caused the Egyptians to withdraw their forces southwards on the coastal route. Nitzanim and Yad Mordechai were relieved, and the Egyptian 4th Brigade in Fallujah remained surrounded in Israeli territory.
לאחר פריצת הדרך לנגב בחוליקת, הגדוד החזיק במשלטים על כביש אשקלון-עזה, פעל נגד התנועה המצרית בכביש הזה, ועל ידי כך הכיש את נסיגת הצבא המצרי מאשדוד אשקלון לעבר עזה.
Towards the end of Operation Yoav, the Iraq-Sudan police force was captured as well by the 8th Armored Brigade. By the end of the war, Givati had managed to conquer and eradicate the Lachish and Adulam regions. Givati troopers determined Israel's eastern border up to the slopes of Mount Hebron.
This is the Voice of Israel broadcasting from Jerusalem. It is 5 o'clock and here is the news. The ceasefire went into effect today. The Prime Minister, Mr. David Ben-Gurion, announced that the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces...
The War of Independence, Israel's longest and most difficult war, had ended. $684 dead and thousands of wounded was the price for the brigade paid for Israel's independence.
ואם תשאל אותי, מהו הנשק הסודי שלנו, הרי זה היה האדם.
A soldier, a determined combatant, faithful to his country and his comrades, adhering boundlessly to the objective. That is Givati. The combatant with insufficient training, inappropriate equipment, and lack of ammunition, but always with immense motivation and belief in his way and his objective, the independence of Israel. Even today, the combatant is the secret of the Givati Brigade's strength. It is no secret that due to the high motivation of troopers and officers, the fatiguing training, and the adherence to the mission have turned this young infantry brigade into one of the IDF's selected brigades. Faithful to the traditions and spirit of its founders, the Givati of 1948. Givati, 2 generations, 1 spirit.